The following program does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good evening and welcome to This House of Musicians with your host, singer, songwriter, and founder of the band, Inner City Outlaws, the Baritone Bear, Barry Smith, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is thishouseofmusicians@gmail.com.
Rockin' day. The classy chassis way.
And now, right to your host of This House of Musicians, Barry Smith.
Hey, welcome, folks, to our listeners. Well,
hello, Barry, you there?
Yep, I'm still here. Somebody was actually calling me on my phone right now, so I'm just going to see if I can put this on Do Not Disturb. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Just give me 1 sec here.
Sure. And I'll just let the folks know, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to This House of Musicians right here on Reality Radio 101. If you'd like to get on board this evening, it's quick, it's easy, and it sure is fun, kids. So listen, send us an email, thishouseofmusicians@gmail.com. Back to you, Mr. Barry.
Hey, 23 shows, and no one's ever called during a show, so maybe the new Do Not Disturb will work. Let's find out. Hopefully they don't call back at the moment. But anyway, to our listeners, welcome to This House of Musicians on Reality Radio 101. We hope you enjoy the next hour with us as we do our small part to help promote musicians, bands, and venues. Gary, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm blessed. Just thankful again about, this virus that's going around, that it has not affected me or my family. And, I'm hoping that everyone's trying to stay healthy.
Good, man. We all are. And so far, I think everyone's doing a pretty good job in this country of doing that. So that is an absolute bonus. I just want to mention that Aldo Nova was supposed to do the show tonight, and something has come up, and he canceled. So hopefully we can reschedule him eventually. But I reached out to Bazil Donovan from Blue Rodeo, and Bazil said, last moment, I reached out and said, would you mind doing the show, Baz? And he said, absolutely. So we have Baz on the show, and Bazil, thank you so much. What a gentleman. Just to, out of nowhere, I call you up and you say, sure, I'll do the show. I really appreciate that. Thanks for being here, Baz.
My pleasure, Barry.
Yeah, it's an absolute...
Looking forward to it.
Good, man. It's great to have you. So what we're going to do then is we'll talk with you a little bit, play a couple of songs that you're involved with, Baz. In the meantime, I want to just, of course, everybody knows by now, because of how fast word travels, that Eddie Van Halen passed away sometime today anyway, of throat cancer, which is devastating at the age of 65 years old. He still had a ton of life left in him, but where the three of us were talking before the show about what an incredible innovator he was. So I just want to just talk about Eddie real quick before we start the show. He was born on January the 26th in 55 in Amsterdam, Netherlands, to Edward Van Halen. He was the son of Jan Van Halen and Eugenia Van Halen. Jan was a Dutch clarinist, saxophonist, and pianist, and Eugenia was an Indo from what is now called Indonesia. The family eventually resettled in Nijmegen, In February 62, the Van Halen family moved from the Netherlands to the United States, settled in Pasadena, California. Both Eddie and his older brother, Alex Van Halen, were naturalized as U.S. citizens. The brothers learned to play piano as children starting at the age of 6. They commuted from Pasadena to San Pedro to study with the elderly piano teacher, Stacy Kalavitis. Van Halen revealed in an interview that he never been able to read music. Instead, he learned from watching and listening. During recitals of Bach and Mozart, he would improvise. From 64 to 67, he won first place in an annual piano competition held at Long Beach City College. Afterward, the judges would comment that he had an interesting interpretation of a classical piece. We'll move forward here a little bit. So Eddie and Alex formed a band in 72, and in 74, the band changed its name to Van Halen. Van Halen became a staple of the Los Angeles music scene during the mid-1970s, playing at well-known clubs like the Whiskey A Go-Go. In 1977, Warner Brothers Records offered the band a recording contract. Upon its release, Van Halen reached number 19 on the Billboard pop music charts, becoming one of rock's most commercial successful debuts. It was highly regarded as both heavy metal and hard rock album. By the early 80s, Van Halen was one of the most successful rock acts of its time. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. The album in 1984 went to 5 times platinum after the year of release. Anyway, I'm not gonna keep reading all this, guys. But I mean, what about the first Van Halen album, guys? Let's start with you, Baz.
Oh man, like Eddie's playing to me was just, it just floored me. When I first heard it, like I was like, what is this guy doing? Like probably not since like Jimi Hendrix had I heard somebody who, was like that inventive, who, kind of, paved his own road, he's just unbelievable.
Agreed. I mean, I heard stories of him first coming out like a complete innovator. Nobody ever played like him before. Nobody. And then he would like come out and play when he first started out and turn his back to the crowd during his solos because he wouldn't want people to see what he was doing to copy him. He did that for quite a while, I believe. But Gary?
Yeah, I mean, that first album, I was shocked, actually. I mean, here is something that was kind of a little bit different. Back in those days, it was just regular, nice, clean rock and roll and a lot of pop stuff coming out of Europe and things, off the wall stuff. And, but he came out with that crunchy, hard sound, and the guitar work was phenomenal just because of how fast it was. I mean, I don't really put a lot of, I like melodic leads when lead players play, because you play for the song, right? And a lot of people love Eddie, his innovation, because he would just noodle and go crazy. And that's not my real thing, to like per se. But I remember back then hearing it, I used to say, how the hell can a human being's hands go that fast? And I was, and it was, and I like the harmonies too, because when Michael Anthony and David Lee Roth, at that time when David Lee Roth took the band serious, I think, their harmonies were quite nice because they weren't conventional harmonies like, a third and a fifth or a first and a third. They were kind of off the wall, like jazzy type of harmonies, discording and stuff. And I was impressed with that, to be honest with you. So, but it is a shock that he passed away at such a young age.
Absolutely, Ben. When that first album came out, I think I was a teenager, and I was just utterly like, what is this? Every song on the album was killer. And let's not take anything away from Roth and Michael Anthony and Alex. They were all amazing. I mean, it all had to work together, and the four of them made all that happen. They were just wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
And the songs were like great songs. They're, like that was the thing, right? They actually had a real pop element to them that was easy for people to digest, as well as being like, killer players.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Easy to digest. You could feel the songs. You could feel the energy. Unfortunately, I've seen hundreds of bands and never had the opportunity to catch Van Halen because I'm sure that they would be loud and furious on stage. But so we're going to just say rest in peace, Eddie, and thank you for, opening the door for a lot of rock musicians, and not just rock, all genres of music, guitar players, and we really thank him for being such an innovator and just opening the door and building the house that we all kind of grew up in as far as rock goes. Yeah, it's a sad day, that's for sure. Baz, let's talk about you, man. Again, thank you for coming in on such a short notice. I always appreciate it. I know I'm going to see you in a week or so on the 17th, and we're going to do a live hour interview, which I'm very excited about. We'll do a live Facebook feed. I know I've been up to see you before, and just sitting there, out of the blue, you start telling rock stories about, different musicians and guitar players and bands and things that have happened to you with these people. So I'm really looking forward to the live interview with you on the 17th. Of course, we'll make that into a nice hour-long YouTube, or not YouTube, but a video that will be on YouTube. Dave Clayton is the producer, and he's going to bring 3 or 4 cameras. So we'll set it all up so that we'll have a great interview after he produces the actual video. But anyway, thanks again, Baz, for being here. Let's talk about briefly, I know we talked about this the last time you were on the show, but let's briefly, for the new listeners, talk about how you started in the music business and who you were inspired by when you were little. So, you got into the music business, I mean little as in a small boy or teenager, and how you got into the music business, and I guess how you hooked up with Blue Rodeo. I know you've been with them for 15 studio albums, man, from the beginning. That's impressive.
Yes, it's a long time, isn't it? 35 years.
Sorry, how long?
35 years.
Good man. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, yeah, I kind of started like a lot of, young aspiring, musicians. I had a family that was, my mother's 3 brothers were all guitar players. Mm-hmm. So watching them was my first inspiration of like, yeah, I want to do this. This looks fun, and I saw, when they had parties, they're from the East Coast, so I saw all the parties and I saw them getting a lot of attention, at the parties and that. And I really loved just, singing along. So that was probably, the initial thing that sparked my, like, I want to play guitar. And so anyway, it was, as time went on and the Beatles exploded, when I was a kid, because I'm the same age actually as Eddie Van Halen. I'm 65 as well. He's a couple of months older than me, actually. Mm-hmm. His birthday's in January and I'm in April. So, I think that of that age group, you talk to anybody who's a musician and they'll say the Beatles were the biggest influence, because yep. they were just everything back in 1964 when I was 9 years old, Mm-hmm. So, and then watching my uncles and that, it just seemed like, okay, I got to do this. I got to learn to play guitar, and then, from there I was in high school bands and, I could always, I played pretty well guitar, but finally one of the guys, and I was playing with somebody who had he was a really good guitar player. He had been playing accordion since he was like 6, and he knew musical theory, and he could play Jimi Hendrix note for note by that time. And he was the one who said to me, listen, we could not get a good bass player, right? Everyone played guitar. So he said to me, like, if you played bass, we could have a pretty good band, because we knew a good drummer, right? Like, who was compatible with us. So I went and bought a bass, and that was kind of the start of it. I was about, I guess, 14 at that point.
Nice.
And over the next couple of years, I, really dug into the bass, and it became, listening to Paul McCartney, I was like, I'm really glad that I chose like I got the bass because he is so inventive on the bass, that like it was really inspiring. And then it was, a few years later, I met my first major girlfriend, and she was a singer. Her name's Verna, and Verna sang really well, and she was already singing professionally when I met her. And one night I went down to see her play with her parents at a bar called the Canada House. Mm-hmm. And the ambulance the bass player that they had in the band, she was just guesting. She was like she did like a set every Wednesday with the band. And anyway, the bass player was also an ambulance driver. He got a beat that night and said he had to go to work. So he walks over to the lead guitar player and says, "I can't stay. I've got to go." Right? Oh. And the lead guitar player his name was Tiny Edward. And of course he was a really big man and everyone called him Tiny. And anyway, Tiny looked at me and said, "I hear you're a bass player. Want to get up there?" And I was like, "Wow. We haven't rehearsed." And he kind of said, "Yeah, that's okay. Get up and hold the thing if you have to." So anyway, I got up there, but I realized once I got up on the stage that I kind of knew the songs because they were the same songs my uncles all sang and at the parties and everything. So I could find my way through it. At the end of the Wednesday night, they said, "Do you want to play Saturday?" Because Arthur can't play Saturday. So that was the start of my country music career. And then I started working after that, like I was 17, I guess, at that point. And I just worked continually, like right up until COVID.
Wow. So when you say work, you're 17, you're 18, you're 19. When you say work now, you mean just getting gigs or joining in with bands to do gigs like almost every weekend kind of thing and then escalated from there?
I was doing 6-nighters in high school.
Wow.
So I would go to high school during the day at like grade 10. I'd be at night in the bar until 1 a.m. And then Tiny, the guitar player, would drive me home. I would go to sleep, wake up in the morning, go to class.
How cool is that?
Yeah. And I was making money. I was like, all of a sudden I was making not quite as much as my father, who was, my father was a trucker, right? Mm-hmm. But I was making close to the same amount, as my dad was. And I was playing music for a living. So right away, I kind of caught on to the fact that, like, you don't have to be a big star to feed yourself in this business, right. And so then I worked like for years and years on Queen Street. And, then I was in a few bands like Cliff Carroll and the Hitchhikers took me on the road for my first time. And I went up north and did, Timmins, Temiskaming, North Bay, Nipigon, Smooth Rock Falls, all those places like Hearst, Kapuskasing, Sault Ste. Marie, and doing 6-nighters. So we would be gone for like 5 months at a time sometimes. That was a tough go. That was after I got out of high school. Mm-hmm. But I learned a lot doing that, a hell of a lot, right? Because, on those gigs, you have to do like the matinee, right? You have to be able to back up 20 different singers at the talent contest on the matinee and learn songs on the fly, Mm-hmm. I got good at that. And that made all the difference. It wasn't until I was like 29 when Blue Rodeo came along. So I was, really at that point, I think I was, whatever dream that I had of making it, like big, so to speak, I kind of put it away. I kind of thought like, well, I'm 29 now. It's not really, not really a time to think about being a rock star or, what I mean? I just thought, sure. Well, I'll just be a bar musician, and that was fine for me. And then, of course, when I met Blue Rodeo guys, we all just wanted to kind of have a band that could play downtown and have some fun. And then record guys started coming around saying, like, hey, you guys got good songs and we want to sign you. You're a good band. We really didn't take them seriously at first.
Mm-hmm.
But, then finally Warner Brothers came and said, okay, well, it was this guy who wanted to manage us, John Caton, who was the one who kind of said, I can get you a deal. And we didn't believe him. We laughed. Yeah, sure you can. They all say that,
Mm-hmm.
But, within a year, he signed a thing with us. He said, I will be your manager. I won't take a penny from you. And until I get you an international deal.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first year, you got to give me a year. He said, I won't take a single penny for managing you in the first year.
What a great
but
guy.
By the end of the first year, I have to have an international deal for you. And he did. So
wow.
We were kind of like shocked at the time,
So when you started with Blue Rodeo, Baz, did you guys, like just doing the bar thing before the Warner Brothers signed you guys, were you guys doing, I know you mentioned they liked your songs. Were you doing covers? A lot of, what was the percentage of covers to originals you guys started out doing? Because I believe now you do what, like all original, or at least 99% Blue Rodeo is all.
Yeah. We throw in some covers because we feel like doing something different sometimes, but it's 99% original songs. I mean, we've got a huge catalog, so you can't really go on when you've got 15 albums of your own material out and go on and do covers, right? So, we do To Love Somebody is a cover that we do, the Bee Gees song. There's a few that we throw in there, like Lee Hazelwood's Working on the Railroad, just to kind of rev things up a bit. But in the early days, it was probably about 65, 70% original, and then 30%, 70-30, I would say. We did some Kinks. We did a Dylan tune, we did Queen Jane approximately. We did Kinks, The Days, Galveston, Jimmy Webb song, Glenn Campbell.
Yep, Glenn
did
Campbell,
a real raucous version of that.
Nice.
Good Year for the Roses, George Jones. That was the thing in the early days. We were a type of band who, I remember one of our reviews from the Confrontation Hall show that struck me, because at that time, the being a country band or being a rock band were, I remember the one reviewer said, these guys cross the line between country and rock like it doesn't even exist, right? Mm. And we were just playing songs we liked, we listened to country, we listened to rock, we listened to, Neil Young, we listened to Elvis Costello, we listened to George Jones. Mm-hmm. So we were just kind of combining everything that we liked into one thing. And, at first you can kind of hear our influences are all there. If you listen to our first album, you go, oh yeah, the piano player was into Keith Jarrett. Well, one of the vocalists really liked Dylan and Costello and John Lennon, or the other one was into Jackson Browne. You know what I mean? Like you can hear all of those influences pretty well defined. And, and Jim was always a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. There's a song on the first album called All for a Rebel, which, even to this day, when I listen to that song, I think this song is one of those great Bruce Springsteen songs that Bruce didn't write, right?
Right.
Because it really could, if Bruce ever got a hold of it and sang it, no one would ever guess that he didn't write it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, it took a while, I think. I think maybe probably by the third album, by Casino, we were no longer copying our idols, kind of thing. We found our own voice. By that time,
and why would you
band?
Copy? Sure, why would you copy? You're going to do originals, right, after the third album?
Yeah, like we sometimes when we were working on songs, they were our own songs and everything, and it was still us. But in the early days, I could hear oh yeah, Greg was listening to a Van Morrison record, and then he comes in with a song that sounds similar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could hear all of those type of things happen, and then after a while, that stopped happening. Then I could just hear them doing their own thing, right?
Cool.
And I guess, this, when I think of the Beatles, I think of oh yeah, if I listen to Day Tripper, I hear Oh Pretty Woman, because they were big Roy Orbison fans, right? So yep. I realized that that's exactly what the people that I grew up listening to, they did that with their idols, right? The people that influenced them a lot at first, they were borrowing heavily from them, and then they found their own voice. So I think it's kind of essential in a way to do it that way. I don't think that it's a bad thing. I think that it's just part of growing.
Yeah, and you evolve and you morph into, especially if you're writing songs, you're going to really want to, I think, if you're going in to do an album, you're going to really want to record your songs. And I guess there are people that do the odd cover, maybe one or two, or one on an album. But for the most part, I think most musicians, when they start writing, they're going to morph into or evolve into just doing mostly all their own originals. And all the great bands are mostly original.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, if you have two writers in the band that are writing all the time, it's just only natural that you're going to be doing originals, and they're competing with each other. I mean, I think that was a secret that the Beatles, had where they had everybody writing, even Harrison to a degree, but the fact that Lennon and McCartney had to compete with each other. Because Lennon would write a good one, and then McCartney would come in with a good one, and then vice versa, right? They just go back and forth. And they'd always go oh, he's got a bunch of good songs for this next record. I better get to work. Well, Jim and Greg, when I would see them, I would kind of chuckle sometimes because, we'd get together to rehearse, and I hear Jim's songs, and then, the next rehearsal, I'd hear Greg's songs, and I think oh man, you guys are ripping each other off sometimes, right?
That's amazing.
Especially for chord progressions, they would, and it would just be, they wouldn't even acknowledge it. They wouldn't say anything about it, but you could tell it was hey, that's a good idea you've got there. Think I'll use it,
That's amazing. Great story.
But that combination, was really become a competition and really fueled a lot of great songs.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. That's a good way to do it. Like you say, competition fueled the songs. It makes for a variety on an album as well, because that Greg and Jim are going to write different songs. Like you say, they have different inspirations. So
yes.
So that's great. Baz, sorry, let me just say we got a couple emails. I want to read them quick, and then I want to talk about, or I want to play a song and then talk about it, because it's a new thing that you did with Blue Rodeo recently, and it's really cool. I want to talk about that. First of all, Leslie Ann emailed in and said, this is the kind of respect you have in this business, Baz. And I've noticed it over the last year or so, because I got to know you a little more, and then seeing everybody's responses to how great of a musician you are, but not just that, also, what a great human being you are. And this sums it up right here. It's from Leslie Ann, and it simply says, "Thank you for having Bazil on your show." I mean, so that kind of just says it all.
Cool.
Yeah, there's really great. No question, no big, long sentence in an email. Simply, thank you for having Baz on the show. So I think that that's wonderful. Here's another one from Sam. Sam says, "Hi, Barry. Hi, Baz. Wow, what a story. Very interesting. I could listen to Baz all night. Great guest. Stay well."
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you, Sam, and Leslie for emailing us. Baz, let's play a song. It's so easy to talk to you, and time goes by so fast. I know I want to play 2 songs here tonight. Let's move forward and play a song, and then we will discuss the song afterwards. This song is called Me and Baz, and Blue Rodeo just brought it out 1 month ago, and it was recorded at the Woodshed band members' homes during the summer of 2020, of course. And it's a song about being on the road too long. And Baz, what an honor for the guys to write a song called Me and Baz. So this song is about you, man, and this goes back to the respect that you have in the business for your band members to write a song about you, because I've seen Blue Rodeo, the wife and I, a couple of years ago in Oshawa, and man, you always just sit in the back or stand in the very back. You're out of the limelight. You let the boys do their thing in the front, and you're always just so humble and so in the back. So let's play this song. It's called Me and Baz, and then we'll come back and talk about it, because I'm really interested to hear how this came about. Folks, I have Bazil Donovan from Blue Rodeo on the show tonight, and we're going to listen to a song that Blue Rodeo just released a month ago called Me and Baz. You're listening to This House of Musicians radio show right here on Reality Radio 101.
Are much worse than what I first let on. I'm spinning out, don't know how I let things get so far gone. Don't know how I let the stakes get so high.
Hey folks, welcome back. We have Bazil Donovan on the show this evening. We just played a song called Me and Baz. The song is about being on the road for too long and the healing power of friendship, written by Greg Keeler from Blue Rodeo. It was recorded at the Woodshed and band members' homes, of course, just recently. It just came out a month ago. Baz, man, tell me first of all, did you know that they wrote this song?
Well, yeah, I kind of was like, it's an old song, right? The song was written on, it was first appeared on the Tremolo album. And then we just forgot about it for 20 years. But just a few months ago, we were doing, when the whole COVID thing started, we did what the Budweiser Stage at Home show on CTV. And when we went to the studio to record some stuff, we thought, well, hey, let's do this one. You know, we haven't done it in a long time. And so we rehearsed it a couple of times and went, yeah, that sounded feeling really good. You know, So we just laid it down again. And then after we listened back, it was even better than we thought. So we decided to do a little video for it as well and put it out. But it never, you know, it wasn't a single on its first round. So we thought, well, you know, let's see how it goes, you know. And it's turned out it's been received quite well. You know, the song kind of harkens back to when, I think if you listen to the lyrics, Greg is going through a rough time. And I think it was just after he was diagnosed with that he had diabetes, right? Because he's the type 1 diabetic. And he was having a lot of trouble, and he, you know, like, he didn't know what was going on, and he was, you know, having vision problems and everything, and he had neuropathy and all this pain and everything. And that's why, you know, the darkness, if you're going to, you know, like all of those lines, if you're going to take me now kind of stuff, that's where it all comes from, because I think he was really feeling like, you know, my days are numbered kind of thing at the time. And,
wow. And,
you know, we had been out on the road forever at that time. And, you know, the only people that you're close to, that you're really close to after a while, are your band members, because it just requires so much work that you don't have time for anything else. You know, people are doing their best to maintain their relationship at home with their family while they're out for, you know, like 8 weeks and 10 weeks at a time. Sometimes, you know, we did tours where we were out for 16 weeks. So at that time, I think he was just feeling, you know, really like he didn't know where his life was going and that. And he's, you know, I think he was also coming to the realization that the friendship that we had was a lot stronger than we thought it was. You know, even though we fought and, you know, we had our differences and all of that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, we were like still brothers, and we were like, you know, we were gonna see it through. We weren't gonna let, you know, fights break us up, put it that way, because we would have, you know, we'd have screaming matches with each other and everything, and then 5 minutes later we'd be in the back of the bus twisting one up, you know. And, yeah, well, I don't
love it.
You know what I mean? Like you kind of you let it go quickly, and there's nowhere to go because you're on a bus together, right? It's not like you can go, I'll see you Thursday. It's like, no, you're going to see me in an hour because like, we got a show tonight, right? So, and then we're going to leave here together, and then we're going to eat together, and then we're going to, you know, like, so by that time, I think, you know, he was kind of, you know, feeling like this is my fate. You know, I'm with these guys, and deep down, I love them. And, you know, life isn't so bad after all, you know?
That's great.
And that was, I think, the start of the song. I mean, I hate to tell you what Greg's song is about, but that's what I take from it anyway.
That's your take from it, sure. And what an impressive song. Let me just read the lyrics real quick. I just think it's a great song. The lyrics start, Greg wrote, "I don't know how I let the stakes get so high, and so did I. Now I can't tell the difference between a truth or a lie, the truth or a lie. Hey there, Baz. Won't you twist one up for the ride? Because we've both been down this road so many times, and we sang all these old songs deep into the night. Yay, my soul is out of touch. That's my problem. I think too much, and I don't know if I'll make it home alive. Too far gone, oh dear darkness. If you're going to take me now. I've had enough. And I don't fear, because I've seen the light that shines behind the shadow's door. And then there's a light that shines. There's a light that shines. That there's a light that shines. It's just pretty darn cool.
Yeah, he's got away with words for sure. You know?
Do you think this will go on an album?
Well, it is on an album already.
Oh, okay.
It's on Tremolo, which we recorded, I think, around 98. I think.
Okay, I need to do my homework. Sorry.
But it's quite a different version, right?
Okay.
So you never know. Like, I know it was released just recently as a single, and that was one of the reasons, because it was one of those songs, like, it kind of got lost in the shuffle. Like, no one ever paid much. It was just, an album cut that went by, and people didn't, never got a release as a single or anything like that. And I think that when he pulled it out and started playing it, he thought, we should have put this song out as a single, Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe we thought it was a little too long at the time. I'm not sure, So, at the time, you're kind of like, record company is saying, well, we really like, this song over here, right? Whatever it is, it might be Bad Timing or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we're going like, yeah, okay, go with that one. And we don't want this one because it's too medium tempo. We want something up, So it got lost. But I think that, in hindsight, we look now and kind of think it shouldn't have got lost. So
I'm sure it's fair to say too, Baz, that Jim and Greg probably have a ton of songs that they wish they could probably record, or that you guys this is probably not the first one that you guys played back in the day, and it got pushed aside or never came out as a single. That'd be fair to say.
Oh man, there's so many. Like, Jim has a couple of what I think are bona fide hit singles that never ever got released as singles, but they're songs that just got buried, because there was when we did our second album, I remember we had that song House of Dreams on Diamond Mine, and the record company said to us, especially the one in the States, who are going like, we can't do a ballad. Ballads aren't selling right now, so we need an up-tempo song. Right. And we were like, well, I don't know what you want. Right. But they ended up going with Diamond Mine. Right. But as the first single. But, we had this song that was a killer song, and it got lost. They just forgot about it. So,
crazy.
That happens all the time. Right. They don't see it the same way. They kind of go, oh yeah, no one's playing ballads. That's what they told us. The radio stations aren't playing ballads right now, which I found hard to believe, right?
Well, they're probably going to say what they're going to say to get, to play what they want to play. And unfortunately, probably you guys are at the stage now where you mostly would call the shots. But back in the day, you do what the record company says if you want to keep the contract. I mean, that's just the way the music industry is. They might even recommend, you could have 30 beautiful songs, but they're going to recommend that you do a cover song of the Rolling Stones or something, let's just say, because they feel that they're going to be able to sell that, right?
Oh, well, yeah, especially the American record companies, right? Because Warner in Canada was always really good to us. They just let us do our thing. But when we would talk to the American side of the company, and when we'd go to put something out, they were always, first of all, they didn't know what to make of us. They didn't know what a band was doing, playing both rock and country music.
They couldn't put you in a genre.
Yeah, there was no such thing as alt country when we started, right? It didn't exist. Neither did Americana. Nothing like that. I mean, even though there was band, the band was Americana, but they didn't call it that back then. So they didn't know what to make of us. They were just looking at us like, we don't know. Like, you guys got guitar, you're all twangy and everything. And sometimes you sound like the Byrds. Sometimes you sound like Neil Young. Sometimes you sound like the Everly Brothers. And then other times, you're singing a straight up country song. And, oh yeah, what's with the jazz piano that's going on in Piranapool? So they didn't really know where to slot us. They didn't have a nice little place that said, oh, here, we know where you go. You go in the, it's like,
Sure.
you know where to slot you too. It's like, oh yeah, okay, right, here we go, the pop rock, right?
Yep.
Right down the main. But with Blue Rodeo, in America, they just didn't know what to do. You're not Nashville, but you're not LA or New York either. It wasn't until we hit Austin where we got embraced, in the States, where in Austin, Texas, they were like, we get it. We know what you're doing, because we got a whole pile of bands that are trying to do the same thing here, And that's why it was such a welcoming place for us, because the rest of America was, it was very divided as to whatever you were, genre you were trying to break in. They wanted to be able to, categorize you. And then a few years later, other bands started to emerge that were similar to us, like the Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo. Those bands started to think, oh, it's the Midwestern sound. But first, that's what they called it, the Midwest sound. And then, Sun Volt, after all of that stuff started to happen, they kind of went, oh, okay, it's Americana, And we were there like 5 years before that, right? So, it's kind of like sometimes you hear about a roaring party, but if you got there 3 hours too early, if the party really started rocking at midnight, but you got there at 7:30, that's what happened to us.
Amazing.
In the States, anyway,
Yeah, that's just too cool to be embraced in Austin, Texas, Canadian band. And, let's get back to talking about the record companies. You guys, the musicians are in it to sing their songs to the folks for heart and soul. Right from the heart, they write their own songs and play. But the record companies are kind of, most of them, what can we make a buck on, I think, is more like what's going on, right?
Yes, well, there's the music industry, and then there's people who play music, and the selling music and playing music are two different things. And some people play it because they love playing it and they don't care. I think we fell into that category. But, when you sign a record deal, they want you to sell. Like they're there, they're putting their money on the line to record you. They want it to get played on the radio and they want it to sell. So
totally understandable. Yep.
Yeah. You feel that pressure of like, okay, how can we, what can we do? So, we always tried to be agreeable. We weren't like, trying to, we had to put our foot down a couple of times, because sometimes it gets downright insulting, like for example, one of the record, because we moved around on record labels in the States a fair amount, because Warner Brothers in the States has like 20 different companies that they distribute, right? So you can end up on Sire Records for 2 albums. Then we started on Atlantic for, I think, 4 albums. And then we got moved over to Sire. And then we got moved again to one called Discovery. And with each of these different companies, they have different ideas of how they want to market you, what they want you to do. And I remember there was, at one point, there was one of the labels I think was called East West. And they said, well, listen, they asked Jim and Greg if they would consider writing with Desmond Child because, he had written a big hit for Aerosmith at the time, right?
Wow.
And they would just kind of went like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're the right band, you know what I mean?
Good for them.
Some bands would kind of go like, we'll give anything a shot. Some bands probably would have said, we'll get together with Desmond Child and see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. They were like, no, either you take us the way we are. And, I respect that they did that because I thought it was a bit insulting myself, as if to say, this guy's got the magic touch,
Very insulting.
Yeah. So sometimes, that's only then though, and that was in the U.S., right? Canada, the Warner in Canada never did anything like that. They were just, their attitude was, you're doing your own thing and you're selling up here. So we're not going to mess with a good thing.
Good for them.
We're just, whatever you guys want to do it. All right. So that's what we did. In the States, it was a whole different ball game because you got all these people interfering, we know we know this market and we know that, we know what's best for you. Right. But they don't.
No, well, they're interested in selling. Baz, we have an email from Ty. Ty says, love that song, Me and Baz. Fantastic. A question. When the guys are rehearsing to get ready for a tour, do they actually just rehearse at their homes as a band, or do they rent a warehouse or a studio for a few weeks?
Well, we have our own studio. And we own a building in Toronto. And we have our offices on the top floor and a studio downstairs, which holds all of our gear. It's also a recording studio, and it's a rehearsal space for us. And we do rent it out. We've had everybody, from Chris Christopherson to Gord Downey to Bare Naked Ladies, Feist recorded in there.
Cool.
Everyone's in Toronto, if you ask anybody, most musicians, they've been to the Woodshed. It's just one of those studios that everybody seems to have used. We've had it since the year 2001.
Wow, that's cool. Now let's talk about. I want to play another song. I asked the producer, Gary, if I could have some more time with you because you always have such interesting stuff to say, Baz. He said, sure. So we're going to continue on with the show if you have time and you're okay with that.
I'm good, yeah.
And we'll go a few minutes over or whatnot, which is amazing. Thank you, Gary. So what we want to do next, let's talk a little bit about Laurie Yates. And I know that you guys have a band together called Hey Stella. So how did that form? And where did you meet Laurie? And I've heard we're going to play one of her songs or your songs, Sweetheart of the Valley. And what a great tune it is. Talk a little bit about Hey Stella.
Well, Hey Stella is a band that kind of came together probably, I guess we've been together about 25 years, maybe a little longer. I'm not sure. David Baxter and I go back to 1979 when we played the Sharks together, and he's the guitar player of the band.
Cool.
And Michelle Joseph, well, she ended up coming along in the 90s somewhere and joining the band. I think it was the early 90s.
Cool.
We've been, we've always played together. I met Laurie at a Toronto Music Awards show. She was up for an award. It was just after her first album that she recorded in Nashville, Can't Stop the Girl, had come out, and she'd been working with Steve Buckingham, was her producer. And her band Rang Tango had just split up. And she had come back from Nashville where she recorded her first album, and she was pretty disillusioned, because she said all of a sudden she had all these session guys playing on her record, and they made this really slick sounding record, but then she got to Toronto and she felt like she wasn't part of the scene anymore. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we started playing together, and we ended up being a couple for 5 years and living together.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah. So anyway, and then we ended up parting ways as a couple, but we still kept playing together. Mm-hmm. And that went on, and it was on and off for a while. Like, there were times when she moved to Hamilton and I didn't see her, and then she'd phone me up and go, "I got a couple of gigs. Can you come and play them?" We going, "Yeah." And then I think she just at some point realized that the band was a good band for her. Like, she felt most comfortable playing with us, so we decided at one point, well, there's no point in us, we had by that time both entered other different relationships, and we were both happy, and we just, we were able to put all of those other things aside and just work together. And, now I look at her like a sister almost, I mean, we've been friends for 30 years, and, it's like when you know people musically so well, that you don't have to say anything. You just, we don't have to rehearse even. I mean, we meet in the studio and we start recording because we know what we're going to do, right? Been doing it so long together that
sure,
it's like telepathic or something,
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, David Baxter and I are actually doing a record right now of country covers where they're instrumentals, and we're both playing guitar, which is good for me because I've never actually played. I've never had a guitar album out, but I've been playing guitar all my life, right? So It was David Baxter's idea. He said, "Let's record a record," and I have a friend out here, Jim Hardy, who has this beautiful studio right in the county here. So we go down to his place every now and then, and we lay down songs like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain or You and Again, some Hank Williams, and I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You, or Blue Skies, and we just trade solos. Like, I play the melody, he plays rhythm, then he plays a melody, I play rhythm, then he takes a solo, I take a solo, and then usually that's it, right?
That's awesome.
And we're, so, and David and I have been playing, even before Hey Stella, we had about a 10-year musical relationship. So it's one of those bands that, it's a really close-knit family type band. We feel like we're the best of friends.
Absolutely. And for the folks out there, just go check Laurie Yates out on YouTube. There's you'll see Baz and the band, and the whole band's on stage. There's lots of videos. There's a song called Handsome Ned. There's Little Darling. It just goes on and on. Almost Blue. So look up Laurie Yates. They have some beautiful songs. And let's go ahead and play one right now, and then we'll come back and talk about this song, Baz. This one's called Sweetheart of the Valley. Hey Stella, which is a band that Baz is in with Laurie Yates. Again, the song is called Sweetheart of the Valley. And right here, you guys are listening to This House of Musicians radio show right here on Reality Radio 101.
Say the beach. place where we can stay. Down the tracks and out of the way. But it's a million miles from Easy Street, from Collingwood to Tennessee. We lost a little sweetheart of the valley.
Hey folks, welcome back. We had Bazil Donovan on the show. We just played a Hey Stella song is the name of the band. We played the song Sweetheart of the Valley. I just wanted to ask you about recording that song, Baz.
Yeah, that's that album was a real pleasure to make, actually. We did that at David Baxter's studio. And Laurie, I guess, had a bunch of songs, and she wanted to do just a Laurie Yates record. But I guess she at first decided she was going to just do it in Hamilton. She had some people she was playing with out there, and she thought, oh, I'll just, this will be like a homegrown record here in Hamilton. And after she started it, she kind of thought, I'm so used to working with Hey Stella that I should go to Toronto and work with them. So we all got called and said, are you busy? Like, are you on the road? And I just happened to be home, and I was like, no, I'm not doing anything. She said, well, I just think that these songs that I've got, my new batch of songs, would be best served by Hey Stella. So
wonderful.
We went into David Baxter's place and we just laid them down. Basically, it was so easy because we arranged them on the spot. We got in there and said, this will go good here, and like, I always love Laurie's writing. I really love how in that song where she kind of, in true country fashion, she mentions, like, from Memphis, and you think that she's going to say, somewhere in Louisiana, but she says from Memphis to Wasaga Beach, or from Collingwood to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had her on. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
I love that she's making those references to, like, towns in Ontario instead of, so often people would, like, pick another American place.
Sure. Well, we had Laurie on the show, and she is certainly a sweetheart of the Valley. That's for sure. Baz, she's a great writer, and I've been listening to a lot of her stuff, especially since we've had her on the show. We look forward to having her on the show again. Baz, what to talk about now? You just did 3 shows or something, didn't you?
Yes, I did one with the Jim Cuddy Band in Peterborough at the right outside the arena in Peterborough. They had a a drive-in parking lot show. And that was fun. We played with the Sheepdogs. The Sheepdogs were the headliners. And it was just nice because we've been in lockdown forever, right? And all of a sudden it was like, hey, we got a show. Well, it turns out Blue Rodeo had a show the next night that was a private party. And I think there was only like 30 people at the party.
Cool.
And it was in the Botanical Gardens in Hamilton. Or Burlington, sorry.
How cool is that?
And, yeah. And it was really nice because we got to play together again. But also, then the next week, it was Laurie's 60th birthday. So we played at the Cotton Factory in Hamilton, which is a great big room. And there was only the live audience only consisted of about 20 people. But it was live streamed out to people on the web all over the place. And that was a fun night, too. It was, it really felt good to play with them because Hey Stella is such a loose band. Like we have a structure of the songs, but there's lots of room to jam, and we're making up endings as we go. We have a huge repertoire. We never know what we're going to play.
Cool.
And so it's just so much fun to get on stage and play again. It really brought home to me how much I miss, for one thing, how I miss being out there playing, but also just how much it's good for the soul playing music. Like, music is the most healing thing that there is. I think people, they can make a bad day a good day, and those kind of things we take for granted in normal times, but I'm telling you, there's been nothing like this pandemic to make me, aware of how much music means to me.
Sure. And when you go out on the road again with the boys or with Laurie, you'd see you're going to have a different attitude altogether because of what happened and how much time you've had off.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember complaining about the road sometimes, I don't think that's ever going to happen again. I really don't. I really think that I would be saying, hey, I am living we all have a joke in this business, like when the van breaks down on the side of the road between Timmins and Kirkland Lake, you go, living the dream, right?
Absolutely, living the dream. Baz, I hear you, man. It's the stuff that happens on the road.
But we are living the dream. It's true,
Yep, and you'll appreciate it a lot more, as most musicians will do in bands when they get back out playing in pubs, bars, venues. They're gonna really. I think a lot of them are gonna have a different attitude and be really appreciative to be able to do that, because I know a lot of them are really missing it. That's for sure.
Oh, everybody, I go on the Facebook and see all the comments from my musician friends, and it breaks my heart because I'm feeling the same way, and I'm looking at their bleeding hearts, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll never take it for granted again,
Absolutely. Baz, there's a segment I like to do on my show always, and it's called, Well, Gary, what do you think about Mr. Baz?
Well, I love Baz anyhow because I love his work, his solo work, Blue Rodeo work. I'm again amazed at Laurie, how much she sounds like Stevie Nicks, and I'm sure she's gotten that before. But that's that's the first thing that comes out of my mind when I hear her. But Baz, you're one of the true Canadians, down-to-earth musicians who, we'll say, made it in this world. You've done so much great work, and I'm sure you could talk to us for days on end of, what's gone on in your life and Blue Rodeo and everything. But I just want to thank you for giving us some of that entertainment to take our mind off of everything that's going on, especially in 2020. It's been a bummer. And we appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, thank you, Gary.
I appreciate it.
Well, Baz, you guys built the house. You and the boys and Laurie, you guys all, you've been around so long playing. You guys built the house that we all grew up in, and I appreciate you being on the show, my friend. I'm getting choked up here.
It's my pleasure, Barry. It really is.
Well, thank you, brother. You're such an amazing guy, and to come out of the blue, I'm sure you're busy, and just to come out of the blue and say, yeah, I'll do the show 2 days beforehand because we had a cancellation. I really appreciate that, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you on the 17th, and we'll do like I said, a live video for YouTube and whatnot. Dave Clayton, the producer, will make something really nice that we can all watch down the road. So, and I'll do a live Facebook feed at the same time. Baz, thank you so much, man, for being on the show.
My pleasure, Barry. I really enjoyed it.
Good. And so did we. And to the listener, I say thank you for being here, and always dance and sing and let the music bring your soul to the surface for all the world to see. Until next time, have a shuffle your feet kind of week, and good night. You've been listening to This House of Musicians on Reality Radio 101.